It's about noticing when your mind does play the tricks and choosing the better option. Even though you don't want to do it and it's uncomfortable, it's the better option. It's worth it.
Welcome to the Driven Female Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Melitta Campbell, award-winning business coach, marketing veteran, and value whisperer. Usually on this show, I speak with successful women each week about their business journey and the most important lessons they've learned along the way. But as it's International Men's Day on the 19th of November, this month I've invited 4 inspiring men onto the show. However, the goal of the podcast remains the same: to help you dream bigger and achieve more by learning from what works and gaining fresh insights, tools, and tips from successful business owners. And to further help you in that goal, I've recorded a special training for you that you can access free of charge from my website, melittacampbell.com. In that training, you'll discover how to attract more of your right fit clients by communicating, marketing, and selling your true value with ease and confidence. You can access this short training from the homepage of my website, melittacampbell.com. But before you go and enjoy that, let me introduce you to today's guest, Richie Kyriacou. Richie coaches hardworking professionals that feel they're not going in the right direction. They feel they're not displaying their true value, and it's showing up in the fear, frustration, and self-doubt they experience on a daily basis. Richie takes them on a journey of self-awareness so they can start delivering their value and be recognized for it, and do it with more clarity, calm, and confidence. As we'll hear in a moment, he left his senior leadership position in corporate as he knew he had to spend his working hours helping others find solutions to their struggles. So, welcome to the show, Richie.
Thanks, Melitta. Good to be here, and great initiative this month for Men's Month.
Yeah, and thank you for stepping up and agreeing to be one of my 4 male guests. You're the last one. But we were talking just before we went live about some of the synchronicities between your message and the messages that have gone before. So I think it's going to be, you're the perfect bookend for this month, if you like. But before we dive into a bit more about living into our own truth and living into our own dreams, which of course is the purpose of this podcast, I'd love it if you could share with people your journey to get to where you are today.
Okay. So I launched just over a year ago to coach full-time, but I guess the story goes back over 10 years when I was in corporate and I wasn't coping with stress, right? It was showing actual physical signs on me, whether it be a rash on my body, my heart palpitations, all that stuff going on. And I was in a point in my life as well. I was very much people pleasing in my role. I would take on too much. I was always saying yes. Not even slow to say yes. I was too fast saying yes and take it on and end up resenting myself for doing it. And even in meetings as well, I would be quite shy to speak up, timid, almost don't make eye contact with me. I don't want to be called out of the crowd to speak. And again, the heart palpitations and stuff. So my only relief at that time, all I knew was to go to the gym during the week. And then on the weekends, I would hit the pub on a Friday after work. And there, brings out the confidence. I'm chattier, I'm funnier. At least in my head, I was. Later down the line, I think I was more arrogant than I was confident and funny. But in that period of time, I wanted answers to this. I was getting really fed up with that lifestyle, with those feelings of stress, the fear, the frustration. So I try to find answers in good places and bad places as well. And I learned a lot of lessons in that time. And I worked out, I guess, how to be confident in the workplace. And I was able to start speaking up more. I was quite calmer in my approach towards work and stress. And I got to a point where that started showing through promotions. And I eventually got up to senior leadership position of one of the global banks, and I was managing multiple teams, and that was great. But I still also had that crutch on the weekends. So Friday, go out to the pub with the other staff, and I could be out Saturday night again. And then Sunday, I'm just, so low, anxious, depressed. And that would carry into next week. And I just wasn't showing up properly. I wasn't showing up how I felt I was needed to show up. And that was across professional and personal as well. So again, I just got completely sick of it. And I was like, this can't be the answer. I can't continue on this path. So I made a decision to stop. And at the time, it was probably the hardest decision. But in hindsight, as I look back today, it was the easiest decision. And once I finally let go of that side, I was then, okay, I need to start giving back. I could stay in corporate. I was doing well there and I could have kept on going. But I said to myself, no, I need to go back and help other people struggling with this stuff. I really felt that I could, and I really believed in myself I could. And I went on that journey, and here we are today.
Oh, so much into that story. And I think, we tend to think of these things of always saying yes, people pleasing, not speaking up as being typical female traits. So it's interesting to hear they echoed in your story. And funny enough, I was writing a chapter of a book called Speaker Journeys, and I'm sharing my speaker journey, and it was almost identical to your story. But the moment I started to speak up, I did build my confidence. People did respond differently. And then my environment started to change. So people around me responded well to that. And it has this beautiful snowball effect. But taking that decision in the first place to make that change and recognizing, because as you said, deep down that you're not living your life as fully as you could be. You could be doing so much more for yourself, for your others in your personal life and at work. But taking yourself off the current path isn't easy. So how did you decide, okay, I'm going to look for some good in here? Was there a specific moment you thought, no, I can't do this anymore, I have to take this next stage? Or was it more of a kind of slow burning evolution?
Look, I've got to be honest, it was beginning of COVID when we all had time to go home, away from the office, reflect on things. And I realized what's important. I had worked on myself, and look, that never stops, I believe. Self-awareness is just levels we go through. But I got to that point, I realized, okay, no, I need to give back. This is bigger than me here. I know there's people out quietly struggling with this stuff, and it manifests in all sorts of negative ways. I need to be amongst that during my working days, during the hours of the day that we work. I need to be there. There's enough people in financial services to keep that going. I need to step away now. And that was hard, you're right, because the money's good. And you're starting something completely new from start. You don't have that paycheck coming in once a month. You have to go out there, put yourself out in different places, get uncomfortable. But because I believed so much in what I was doing, that just kept me going. And it gets hard sometimes still, right? Because the mind wants to come in and tell you otherwise. But again, you come back to that belief and trust. And now I've worked with clients and I can see testimonials. I can see the results they have. They say to me how they're then giving back to other people and helping them, their families. And that stuff just lights me up and keeps me going, to be honest.
How wonderful to have that ripple effect, which just keeps reinforcing that you have taken the right decision. You are in the right place. And it's just the beginning. I mean, where you can go from here is going to be extraordinary, I'm sure. So tell me about those good places. You started to think, okay, I need to do more. And I love that you recognized that it was up to you to work on yourself, to extract yourself from that environment, or forcibly extracted thanks to COVID, but jumping on that opportunity to really look at how things could be different. What did you do? Were there any particular tools, methodologies, or experiences that really helped you on that path?
Yeah, lots. And that key word there, experiences as well. You learn so much from those. But look, going back over 10 years ago, when I started that journey to like figure all this stuff out, I started reading a lot in the self-awareness space. I took up meditation to help with stress, and that's just evolved into something completely amazing. And I'm a massive advocate for it today. The gym. Look, I also, and this is given this mental health month over 10 years ago, that's when I started to see a therapist as well to try and solve this. And it's funny, I can say that now on your podcast, but back then, 10 years ago, when I was standing outside the therapy office out on the street ready to go in, I was looking up and down the street to make sure no one could see me in case they knew me going in. There was this shameful thing to it. But now I can just openly talk about that because it's important. It's important to go in and just let stuff go that you're hanging on to. It's about the result that you get afterwards. Yeah, and I just continued on that journey. I got to be honest, it was a lot of education and putting that into practice midweek. But then on weekends, I'd go and, back to the pub again. That was the big thing I needed to let go of. And a lot of experiences came through that, sitting in that low point on Sundays and Mondays and even Tuesdays sometimes. That's when you can really reflect. I don't recommend it, by the way, but you can really see yourself in a different way, understanding yourself and knowing, right, this is not good. I need to get out of this. And yeah, you just keep going.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that with us and just giving that reflection on how, we can do so much good, but then there are some bad habits that are just so stubborn that they're not so easy to break, but you've got there. And thanks for sharing what you mentioned there about going into your therapist's office and checking if anyone's watching because of that shame. And I think that's something that we all feel. And I feel sometimes a lot of the shame is because we're not living up to expectation. Some of the expectation we've laid down for ourselves, and some of it that's come from other people. We're expected to have a corporate job and get the next promotion and fly. We're not expected to struggle in that journey. And if we do, we're not expected to go and get help, when in fact that's exactly what we need to do, and it's perfectly normal, and it's a very good thing to do, very healthy, not just for us but the people around us. Do you feel that that's where your journey was coming from, that you were living up to other people's expectations rather than your own?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I was doing it without even being aware I was doing it, just through the automation. We're just operating on default. That was me. You go to school, you're told to get good grades, you go to university. I remember it was with my career guidance counselor at the end of high school, and we're trying to figure out what course to do in university. And he asked me a simple question: do I see myself wearing a suit or dirty clothes? And I immediately said suit because I related it to money. And that was enough for him to just put down business courses on that choice form. So I went off to university. I did a commerce degree, get a good degree grade, and then you move on. You start working in corporate. And I was just on default. Yes, there was everyone else seemed to be doing it. I didn't even question whether I should just step away and try and figure out what's meaningful to me, what's at my core. I didn't even have those tools. Just wasn't aware. I was just out to do the next good thing and be a contributing member of society and get on the payroll, get into a company, start climbing the ranks. And it's only until you go through that journey and then you just listen to those signals. Something doesn't feel right here. As I said, I'm sitting in the office and I'm taking on all this work and taking on all this stress, and just like, what's the point? Something needs to change. And it's just having those niggly questions and trying to then find the answers for them, and go find the answers in good, healthy places, of course.
Yeah.
And then you start developing that awareness slowly, figuring out, well, what is important to me? What's the vision for my life? Who am I?
Yeah.
And when you start figuring that out, you can then start taking action with that. And it's only through, taking the action, you then develop confidence, and you can just have that belief and trust and faith that you're on the right path now, according to what your core is and what's meaningful.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, again, you've hit on so many great points there. And, we were speaking the other day with Alexander, and he was saying about how you just have to go with the environment, go with things, and trust that it's the right path for you. But if it doesn't feel like the right path, like you were saying, there was little niggles in the background, there's little questions. I think, well, what is the point of this? Is this really what I want? And as those questions start to bubble up, that you can start to make better choices from your awareness and explore those. But if that experience of having those questions is resonating with anyone listening, what do you feel should be the first step for them, or what kind of things can they do to start filtering through, or what is important to me now? What do I relate to? What aligns with my values and purpose, and what is just the echoes of someone else's expectation?
Good question. There's two ways. There's one which I did, and that's trying to do it on my own. And it took a long time. And then there's the other way. Try and find someone who has understanding, experience, and skill set to help you find your answers. I think that's going to accelerate someone's self-awareness. Because honestly, that's really just the key, is really being brave and going after what it is that is important to you and meaningful. And all it starts with is just that trigger of knowing something doesn't feel right, or maybe you're behaving a certain way and you start to get a bit sick of it and question, it has to be a better way. That's all it is. There has to be a better way. It starts there. And there's plenty of people out there in the world looking to help people find their answers. And it's about just finding someone that you also trust, obviously has a good background, is reputable, and as long as there's a good connection as well, you'll get results.
Yeah, exactly. And as you say, finding a coach or someone that can support you, that you have that rapport and connection with, is really important, because you're going to work very closely with this person and open a lot and be quite vulnerable with them. So it has to be someone you trust. Absolutely. So you went back, you discovered that the path you were on wasn't feeling right for you. You had those questions, you explored those, and you built your courage along the way. Do you feel that having faced those fears, built that courage, that enabled you to make the leap to start your own business?
Yeah. Yeah, because until that point, look, fears, I believe, fears are just thoughts, and thoughts into more thoughts, into more thoughts. Next thing it's a story, next thing it's a belief, next thing it's just holding you back from what you're here to do. So it's about really challenging those thoughts, finding the truth in them. And yes, it's about facing the fears. And that sounds scary and it sounds uncomfortable. And it almost might get worse before it gets better, but it's definitely better once you're over that hill. It really is. There's a feeling of freedom to it, a peace, a joy that you're here for the reasons you're meant to be here. So you can stop living according to society's expectations and pressures. And fears still come. Like I'm no angel or saint. I still have them come up. But with the tools I've learned now over time, I can catch them and just let them go and really come back to the present moment and be focused and grounded on the greater good.
And there's a great quote, and I think it's attributed to Mark Twain, probably other people as well, but that, isn't it wonderful how I've had all these fears in life, but none of them have come true, or very few of them have come true. And I see that in my business. I often think starting your own business is easier and harder than you think. Easier because so many of the fears that you have before you start just aren't a thing. Once you make that decision and get started, most of those just disappear automatically. But it's the ones you haven't prepared for that will potentially trip you up, but will also show you the path as well. There is really no failure. It's all just lessons, particularly when it comes to entrepreneurship. Were there any particular fears that you had when starting your business that nearly tripped you up?
Yes. So when I realized at that point that I need to go back and help other people struggling with this stuff like fears, frustration, stress, and that lack of confidence, I felt so strongly in what I was offering. But I was so naive and I didn't realize that I need to start putting myself out there publicly in order to attract in clients. I think I was just of the mindset that clients would come just out of nowhere magically. And that was a big fear, because come away from the corporate scene, people know me there, and then who's Richie? Richie's stepping over to be a coach, and he's now talking about all this stuff. What's going on there? And the fear is the fear of rejection. It's the fear of not being accepted. But again, it comes back to the belief in what I'm doing. And that people pleaser person of me is very quiet now. And I operate in a space of, well, I've just got to do this in what I believe in. And there's going to be people that don't like it anymore. Richie's changed, and that's fine, right? I don't need to be liked by everyone. But when you start operating from that core place, you start connecting with the people you need to be connecting with, like-minded, that are on similar pages as you. And yeah, that's it. You start seeing the evidence of your work. You start working through those fears as they come up. And the famous book, Susan Jeffers, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. You feel the fear, see the truth in it, do it anyway. And when you start building these positive results, it just gives you more confidence to go out and keep doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned Susan Jeffers, and she says that the one fear behind every fear is this fear that we're not good enough. And the only way to prove to yourself that you are is, as you say, to work through the fear, just to do it anyway, just to get out there and try. And what I love about you is you did start on LinkedIn. You started from scratch. You were worried about what people might think. And what most people might do is perhaps put out a little safe post, just a little bit of text, but no, you jumped straight in with a big video. But tell us what happened when you put that video out there. Did people start saying, Richie, what are you doing?
No, it was a great supportive response. And yeah, it gave me that confidence to keep going with this. Yeah. But that little bit of fear creeps in again each video, but it gets quieter and quieter each time. And yeah, I've just got to keep going. Again, it's bigger than me. It's not about, do I look good? Obviously, I want to look good, right? I want to be professional and speak well, but it isn't about me. It's the message that's behind it. It's there to help people.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember when the first time I started talking about the shy girl side of my journey, and I was really nervous about that because I was like, oh, people are going to judge me. They're going to think a lot less of me, that I'm not as credible. But it was completely the opposite. And it's just resonated with people so much. And so many opportunities to share that message have come up. And then, of course, I was like, no, you are realizing you're asking the shy girl to stand up and speak in front of 5,000 people. Are you crazy? But then I did it and it was fine. And you realize actually 5,000 people isn't quite as intense as you think, because you can only see the first few. It's better than a room of 50 where you can see everyone's face. So, we work through these and say we prove to ourselves, we find that evidence to say, absolutely, you can do this. And when you remember, as you say as well, that it's more about the message. It's not you personally, it's the message within your experiences and that story that can help someone else who is really struggling right now, who is really in that place where they're having those questions and thinking, well, what next? Where do I start? And then Richie pops up and says, start here. What a gift.
Yeah.
So I know one thing you mentioned there, that you get up and you go to the gym. Is there anything else you do on a daily basis to help you maintain that confidence and energy?
Yeah, so begrudgingly wake up in the morning to go to the gym. I don't bounce out, but I just know I have to do it. Sometimes it's just a matter of, my body is this vessel. And even though my mind wants to stay under the blanket, like I just say, no, just go through the motions, get out. And it's always better when I do. So yeah, get up. I'll have a journaling practice as well. I'll go to the gym. I'll eat right. I think that's important. And in that meditation practice as well, which I mentioned earlier, that just helps really become grounded, peaceful, and calm. And it's great in that space, but it does carry out in my day. I notice the difference. If I don't do that work in the morning on myself, I'm a bit moodier, I'm a bit grumpier, but I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be that person for me. I want to hang around with, nice, cool, chilled Richie. And also I want to show up for clients with that energy as well, right? And give them that space. So I have a few different tools as well, intraday and in the evening as well, just to help stay in that space. And it's become so habitual now that it just happens. And the results are there. It's just a better way to live, because the mind can be quite destructive if you leave it up to its own devices. It wants to tell you to eat bags of chips and chocolate for 3 hours in front of the TV, which, so look, the odd time I'll do, right? Maybe on a Sunday night I'll do that, but you can't be doing it all the time. So it's about noticing when your mind does play the tricks and choosing the better option. Even though you don't want to do it and it's uncomfortable, it's the better option. I'll explain it this way. We're awake for 14, 15 hours a day, maybe more. If put an hour or two in the morning just on yourself to get you into that space, it's worth it for the remaining hours you're awake.
Absolutely. And the more I do this, and I've mentioned this several times on the show before, that the more I see that link between self-love, self-care, self-respect, and success. Because once you believe yourself that you're worth it, once you believe that you have something valuable to offer others, then suddenly anything becomes possible. And the right people connect with you. You're in that right energetic space to make great things happen. And as soon as those great things happen, then that provides you with that fuel and the motivation and the confidence and the proof that, yeah, more great things are happening. So it's really that wonderful snowball effect. And it can be slow at first. In fact, sometimes it's so slow you don't even notice it. But as long as you keep up with it and you have that trust, as you say, then that journey comes. And suddenly you realize, you look back and think, oh, that goal I was aiming for, I've already done it. I'm here. I think, great, now what? And you can start to dream bigger again. So a lot of what you've touched on is all about mental health. And there is a lot more talk about mental health out there right now, which is wonderful. Are there any trends that you're seeing in this space, or anything that's particularly helpful to help people move forward and protect their own mental health?
Yeah, there seems to be so much awareness today on mental health. You can just scroll through social media and you're seeing it everywhere. But it's about also just leading by example in a way. So we can talk about it all day long, but we also need to see people actually expressing that they've been through it. They were there once and now they're here, and they got there because of taking this action. In the traditional sense of talk therapy has been around, and the thing that comes to mind when people think mental health, talk therapy. But look, coaches are out there too to help with this stuff. All right. In terms of trends, what I'm seeing is science now coming to the fold with research on alternative ways, more natural ways. Chinese medicine has been there, but there's, in terms of, for example, plant medicines out of South America, the one we might have heard of is ayahuasca, which I've experienced myself, and there's profound results in that. And the research that's backing it. And science is there now today trying to show mainstream what results you can get. Other things, look, therapists in the States, in the US, in some states are now using psilocybin mushrooms with patients and helping them through that journey. Something I've been experimenting myself with is breath work. So you might have heard of Wim Hof and his mix of cold therapy and breath work and climbing the Himalayas and all that kind of stuff. But that, it's breath work for me, is just taking meditation to a different level. But again, there's that therapeutic experience through it in really reaching that present moment, right? Away from the ego self, and just sit in that space. And that's just pure bliss. And it's all through the breath. You don't need to go out and take anything. It's all in you. And that's the tricky part, which I don't know if science will ever solve, is that inner healing intelligence that every human being has. They'll try, but I'm not sure if they'll ever be able to pinpoint exactly what's going on.
And it's incredible when you hear these stories of how people just healed themselves in 24 hours of all these ailments just through their inner work. And as you say, that these tools that are available to us, like just breathing. And it is really interesting to see the shift out there right now going in that direction. And I think it's really positive that people are finding it more acceptable to slow down, to breathe, to think, to give themselves that space. Because as you said right at the very beginning, stress is a pandemic right now, and people are burning out and they don't have the tools to prevent it or to know what to do when it happens. So the more people out there like yourself taking the courage to share their stories and what's possible, and the more that, as I say, science is kind of giving the stamp on these ancient wisdoms, really. I mean, meditation and breathing has been around for such a long time. I think that's only a good thing for our future. So yeah, it's exciting to see what happens next and how these tools are going to be taken up in the mainstream.
Yeah. You remember when yoga and meditation went mainstream, I think like 15, 20 years ago, people were slow to take it up, but when they take it up, oh yeah, this is nice, peaceful. there's just going to be more of that ancient wisdom coming through in alternative ways. And people will be slow to take it up initially, but it's all about the results. It really is. As you said, there's a pandemic going on with stress right now. Got to try some alternative ways.
And it all starts from within. We already have the tools. It's just tapping into those and having amazing coaches like yourself out there that can help show you the path and shortcut that journey, but also make it safe along the way as well, so
Very
that you
important,
can. Richie, you have shared just so much. I know I say this all the time, but you really have shared so much wisdom. And thank you for taking the courage to share your journey so openly now. And as you said, it wasn't that long ago where you wouldn't have opened up about any of this. But I know the audience would have really benefited from hearing your story today and your advice. Is there anything that you would like to share that we haven't touched on yet?
I think we have touched on, but specifically I want to call out, just take care of yourself first. It's the classic, put your own oxygen mask on first before others, whatever that means for you in taking care of yourself, right? We all have different ways of doing it. Just as I spoke through some of my ways, that might not work for someone else. But it's about being honest with what does work for you and trying to stick to it. Sometimes you won't stick to it. It's okay. Don't beat yourself up. It's about getting back up and trying again and take the wins. And you'll get stronger and more confident. And look, you take care of yourself first, you start taking care of others. That's what it's all about.
What a powerful note to end on. Thank you so much, Richie. So for anyone listening to this podcast who would like to learn more about you and working with you, what's the best way for them to find you?
Simple Google search, Reset with Richie. That will find me. Feel free to get in touch. Got a contact form there, or if you're actually interested in hearing more about what my coaching can offer you, just set up a call.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Richie.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. I hope you took away as much value as I did. Let me know what your biggest takeaways have been in the comments section below or in the Driven Female Entrepreneur Facebook group. And if you've enjoyed the show, then I would love it if you could leave a review on iTunes and share this podcast with your network and business besties. There are a lot more tools, tips, and insights coming up for you in the next episode. So subscribe now so you never miss your weekly dose of inspiration. And remember to follow my new free training that I've created for you to help you communicate, market, and sell your true value with greater confidence, ease, and joy. You'll find it on the homepage of my website, melittacampbell.com. I've been Melitta Campbell, business and communication coach for driven female entrepreneurs, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.